No matter how careful or knowledgeable you are, you're gonna make mistakes. That's just the way that life is. But when it comes to living things, when it comes to reptiles, there are 5 mistakes you cannot make. And today, let's go over them. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. As Hannah Montana once said, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those. That's a weird reference to make. My point here is everybody's going to make mistakes in every hobby or everything that they ever do ever. Nobody's perfect, but there are 5 things that just are unacceptable in today's landscape with the internet, with how much information is on the internet, just in general. Like, there's no reason to make these mistakes. So let's just start it off with number 5, using outdated materials. Here's what I'm talking about. Using things like heat rocks. Using things like reptile carpet, things like Repti sand, things that we know now are not good to use. There are several others, but these are the 3 that came to mind when I was just trying to write this list. It was kind of bang, 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 especially heat rocks. Here's why. Even if you set them up on a thermostat, they often malfunction. Heat rock that malfunction is going to burn or kill your animal. Generally, I think that's frowned upon to injure your animal because you use something that there's really no use for anyway. What I mean is, when you try to heat an animal, there's a bunch of ways to do it. You can heat it from underneath the tank, you can heat it from over top. If you really want a rock to be warm in the enclosure, set a halogen light over top of a piece of slate in the enclosure. Wham bam, you got yourself a heat rock. The other 2 big ones that I see all the time are reptile carpet. It's just a breeding ground for bacteria, even if you wash it all the time, and it can snag like claws. If you use it for leopard geckos, for example, which is like a really common one, I've personally used to use reptile carpet, and I learned from my own mistake. This was close to 10 years ago. It was Cheech, the leopard gecko, and he got his claw stuck in it, and I woke up and there was blood all over the tank. He's still with us, he's still alive, still a great boy, but it is something that I learned from my own way. So, I mean, if you can learn from other people, learn from other people. Calci sand, Repti sand, whatever you want to call it, same sort of thing. It's got calcium in it, which you'd think would be good because it adds, but really it just gives them incentive to lick the sand. And although the sand is a round grain of sand, which is usually safe, no matter, like, if you have too much sand going into your animal, there is a chance for impaction. So, I mean, no matter how you slice it, don't use this. Play sand is much safer and it's way cheaper. Now, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse with number 5 because number 4 is very similar. Using outdated care guides. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some steadfast rules that have been going on for years and years that we found out long time ago, and I'm not by any means kind of like crapping on people who've been doing this forever and use that experience. Experience is good, but things evolve, and it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, things that you learned 20 years ago are going to change now. So, don't use a care guide from 1980 that says that you can't use loose substrate for your bearded dragon and you should use a heat rock and you know what I mean? Like, things evolve and you need to evolve with them. Even things like reptile recommendations. I mean, all of us have seen these top 5, well, I mean, if you watch this channel, top 5 intermediate, beginner, whatever. I've seen lists from books or from the internet that is like 2008, somewhere around there, where it was on forums back in the day. Remember before like most of social media? And it would be like, oh yeah, iguanas are really good for beginners. And it was written by someone who owned a pet store because the pet store had iguanas. Like, you understand what I'm saying? The world has evolved so much in comparison to then. And even besides that point, I just think there was so little information back in the day and it was much more difficult to converge. Like, when I do these top 5 lists even, or if I go in depth on a certain species, I will talk to breeders and keepers of that species, and it's really easy because we have the internet. If you're reading a care guide from 1995, that wasn't an option. So you're getting one person's take, one person's opinion, And that's not a great way to do science, and really that's kind of what this is talking about biology of an animal to discuss how to keep it correctly. So anyway, staying up to date means up-to-date information guiding your decisions about your animals. Before we move on with our list, I want to say thank you to this episode's sponsor, Honeygain. Honeygain is an app that anyone can download that allows you to earn money by sharing your internet connection. And it really couldn't be easier. Download the Honeygain app on your Android or iOS smartphone or your desktop with a consistent internet connection. Once active, Honeygain securely uses your internet connection, never giving access to your personal data. By using your internet connection to gather bits of information that are publicly available anyway, you're helping businesses compare prices and collect the information for internet statistics. And then the fun part, you, the user, earns money for sharing your internet connection. And then you can choose to get paid either by PayPal or by Bitcoin. And right now, if you download the Honeygain app and register with code WWR, we'll give you $5 just for joining. Once you download the app and it's running in the background, you'll forget it's there until payday. And no, Honeygain's not going to make you rich, but you could earn enough money to make your Spotify or YouTube Premium or maybe your Netflix free every single month. I use Honeygain, it's 100% safe, so today join tens of thousands of users with code WWR and we'll give you $5 just for joining. Number 3, biggest mistake I see all the time, not supplementing correctly or enough. Now, I will say that I don't think that over supplementing is a big thing that happens a lot. I think that the amount of times that I see over supplementation for most species is next to zero. And this is a main concern, or a big concern that I see in a lot of forums and group chats and things like that. And I'm not saying this isn't something that can happen. That can definitely be something that happens. But in general, what you're going to see much more often is under supplementation, or not supplementing at all, which blows my mind, by the way. Now, here's the thing. I can't actually guide you on the right amount to supplement because it depends on the species of animal that you keep. Now, nearly all lizards, some turtles, tortoises, very rarely with snakes, you actually need to add supplementation. Things like calcium, D3, multivitamin. And it's important that you do because there's certain animals that if you don't give them the right supplementation, they will die a terrible death. We're talking about something crippling called metabolic bone disease and several other things that will basically destroy your animal. I've got an animal with metabolic bone disease, my jeweled Lacerta Bob. It is sad to watch. Now, I got him like this, and now I give him UVB and the right supplementation, but whoever had him first didn't, and it's really, really sad. So all I'm trying to say here is do your research on the species that you're keeping, be less afraid of over-supplementation than you are of under-supplementation, and make sure that you're giving them all the right supplements. You can buy just regular calcium that isn't even made for reptiles, just calcium off of Amazon. It doesn't have to be the fancy Zoomed, Exoterra, or whatever brand, plus D3. Like, at the end of the day, you don't need to buy something that is reptile specific. As long as it is a one ingredient type of thing where you're just buying the calcium, just buying the D3, and you can measure it adequately. This is just a long-winded way to say supplement your reptiles correctly. Number 2, there's gonna be some disagreement on this, but I don't care. Undersized enclosures. So often, and I get so many comments in the comment section when I do these videos. Well, ball pythons, they only need a 20-gallon enclosure. Yeah, if you're a terrible person, they do. That's the thing, is there's a big difference between the care guides from 20 years ago where it says ball pythons can live in a 10-gallon enclosure. This is a real thing that I've read. When I got into reptiles, that was what they were talking about, 10 or 20 gallons. Now we know you should be keeping them in like a 4x2x2 or something like that. So it's just insane to me that people still keep adult female ball pythons, a 5-foot animal, in a 40-gallon enclosure. It is sad, it is disturbing to me to even think that people still do this, and it's just simply because we want to give these animals room to roam. We want to give them the most, or the closest to their natural environment as we can. And going back to ball pythons as an example, I know I've heard it a million times. Oh, well, they live in termite mounds in the wild. Do you think they spend their whole life in a termite mound, or do you think they go termite mound to termite mound and therefore traverse tons and tons of area to do it? I mean, a little bit of common sense goes a long way. And I know I'm getting not argumentative, but kind of aggressive on this, and it's just because I feel so passionately about this subject. Stop taking shortcuts. I don't care if you read something from a forum 15 years ago that says otherwise. Animals need bigger enclosures than we once recommended. And if you look at the US and Canada, which is where most of the people who are watching this are from, and you compare it to places like Germany or the UK, it's sad and ridiculous how small of enclosures we keep and is okay for us to keep in. That's just my 2 cents on that. And after this, Diamond will be going back into his 120-gallon enclosure because keeping bearded dragons in 40-gallon enclosures is wrong. This is a guilt trip. I don't care. Let's do better. Number 1, biggest mistake I see all the time, not keeping the right temperature and humidity parameters for the species that you have. I see this happen a lot with people who keep animals or have been keeping animals for a while. They've got a leopard gecko and they've got a bearded dragon and they've got a ball python and they keep them all in the same room with the same setup. Well, that's not really gonna work because your leopard gecko and your bearded dragon, sure, similar type requirements, similar, not the same. But your ball python needs a much more humid enclosure. So it's not even close. I think sometimes you get complacent and you think, I've been doing this for however long, I know what I'm doing, I don't need to measure parameters. But you do. You still need to measure parameters. It's just the way that it is. Sorry. I mean, I know that it's a little bit of extra work, but just stick a hygrometer and thermometer inside the enclosure and keep an eye on it. That's it. And then adjust accordingly. It's kind of like not that difficult, but things that people neglect a lot of the time. So if you keep your ball python and your leopard gecko in the same room, you can do that. Just the substrate's going to be different. The amount that you missed is going to be different. The parameters are going to be different. And that's how you make those parameters work. So I could beat this dead horse, but the idea is like make sure the parameters fit the actual animal and what they need. So that's it. What do you think? Have you made these mistakes and corrected them? Do you not agree with? Just let me know in the comment section what you think. I would love to have your opinion on the subject. And while you're down there, if you don't mind, hit the like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment if you want. All those things help more than you could ever know. I'd really appreciate it. And as always, a thank you, a giant thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys get extra content, you guys get discounts on the merch, you get things early, you know about the Reptile room, the big advancements that it's gonna be crazy. I cannot wait to show you the new Reptile room. We've been working on it for over a year and it's gonna be, I don't know, I love it. I love spending time in there now. For as little as $1 a month, you can be part of the Patreon club too. I'd really appreciate it. That's it. Because I do videos twice a week, that means that I'll see you on Thursday. Or today's, so it'll be Monday. I'll see you. I'm never gonna get this right. I'll see you on Monday.